Today we're calling State of the Church Sunday. The State of the Union address is going to happen in the next couple of weeks, and I was tempted to have the band, play it, strike up the march for me. I was going to shake hands in the aisles and things like that today, but we bypassed that. But I thought it'd be good at the beginning of the year to kind of take stock of where we are, where we've been, especially given the last couple of years have been so tumultuous and so many challenges that we've faced as a congregation and as individuals as well. Just to give you a sense of that, a year ago we were coming back into in-person worship on this Sunday after being out for 4 Sundays, because last January, COVID numbers were as high as they've been through the whole pandemic. So it's not that long ago. We're still feeling the effects of that, but we are coming out of it, and I want to tell you where we are as a congregation. So I was on the Eastern Shore, 8, 9 years ago, and saw this church. And as both a photographer and a pastor, it caught my attention for some reason. I don't know why. But I've carried that image with me ever since that day. Here was a church ready to be moved, literally. You can tell it's kind of up on blocks, and you picture a big truck and things that are going to move it somewhere and to a new location and a new purpose, perhaps. Maybe it's going to stay a church. Maybe it's going to become something else. There are church buildings being turned into all kinds of things these days, right? Holly knows one day I want to turn a church building into a photo gallery. That would be pretty cool. Maybe that's my retirement dream. I don't know. But anyway, I've always carried with me this image of the church as a mobile place, and the church that never ought to get too comfortable just remaining where it is, right? And if we ever needed a reminder of that, we certainly have had it over the last couple of years, where we've been disrupted like every other institution and business and family life. Churches particularly have been disrupted over these past 3 years. We've had to be mobile and nimble and inventive and creative in all the ways that we do ministry. And we are sort of on the other side of that, but we're not really yet. And so we've been coming through that. And we've been in a lot of transition of late. So I want to talk to you a little bit about engagement, because actually engagement is something that's the new measure of how is your church doing. People say don't measure by worship attendance anymore. That only tells you so much. You have to measure by engagement. How many people are engaged in the life of your congregation? And worship is part of that, but it's not the same number than it used to be. Matter of fact, churches are sitting at about 45 to 65% of where they were pre-COVID right now. And we're on the upper end of that, but that means we're still only at 60 to 65%, right? It feels good that we're getting many Sundays over 300, but we used to have worship of about 500 in this place. But we're getting there. And people are coming back, but that's the good news. We're seeing and greeting and welcoming back people, as well as new people in our midst, which is a wonderful thing. And we last year we had about 30 new members join, which is great, right? There are new people coming as well as people coming back. That's the great news and the good news. The other more sobering news and challenging news is they're just not coming back as often, right? And that was already happening pre-COVID. But like so many other things, that got accelerated. People's patterns and habits and tendencies have changed. And so even our most faithful people, we don't see as often as we did 5 or 10 years ago, because that was already changing. But COVID accelerated that. And so people are coming back, which is great, but they're not coming. They might come back one Sunday, we might not see them for a month. So we have a lot of people still connected to the life of this church, but maybe not with the same regularity that once was. And so we're kind of navigating this new space. There are tons of hopeful signs, and we've been marking them and we've been celebrating them as a congregation. I'm going to give you a whirlwind tour of some of the hopeful signs I saw over the last year, and that many of you got to participate in as well and see. So everything from new ministries that we took on at First Farms and kids that are all around. We had such joy during the Advent and Christmas season with our angels, and we've had more presence of children singing in worship, which is a really exciting thing. We had about 30 kids up here singing in the fall, and they'll sing again for us in a couple of weeks. We continue to do things like Backpack Buddies, but we're also bringing in resource people to help us learn about faith and race, and how do we continue to be a part of that conversation? How do we continue to reshape our lives and our attitudes as individuals and as a congregation? We are finding new ways to reach out and get outside of the building. That's part of what it means to be a mobile church, right? To know that all ministry doesn't just take place in a static place, but this church has been leaving the building for a long time. During COVID, we were able to sustain some of our outreach ministries, like Rise Against Hunger. Every year we did Rise Against Hunger, even through the pandemic. But a lot of our other ministries we weren't able to do. Our music ministry is growing again, more people in the choir, more kids engaged. We now have connections with the preschool as well in our music ministry, so some exciting things happening there. I love the fact that so many of our mission opportunities are intergenerational. It gives youngest kids all the way up through our oldest adults a chance to participate together. And we have incredible music, don't we, here at this church? And we have such a wide range of it, whether it's a flute player or a cello or our worship team or the traditional music that we have, all the different ways that we praise God together. You responded in such a big way. We had about 330 span bags that literally refilled the shelves of span. They were near empty this winter, and the demand is higher than normal because most of the government support stuff that was available during the pandemic has gone away or is going away. So we are getting more calls as a church. SPAN is getting more calls because there is more need in our community than there was over the last couple of years. Those other support mechanisms have gone away. So that was a powerful witness. And then we went down just a couple of weeks ago and we painted and we refreshed the whole space down at SPAN. We continue to do things in worship to confirm our youth. Meg is a tremendous leader here as well. I'll say more about her role a little bit. I see so many smiles and so much joy as I go around the church and participate in all these things. There's lots of laughter. And it's often tied to service, right? It's often tied to it's in the midst of the serving that we find such joy. We were able to do some things that we hadn't been able to do for a while. This is you might recognize on the right-hand side, that's a newer person to our church, John, who was part of our massive fall garage sale. We haven't been able to do that in about 3 years. So that was great that we all rallied, and it took every single one of us. It took us coming together in new ways with new people stepping up to do things. We continue to be a place where we offer the sacraments regularly, and that's a sustaining force for our worship community. There are kids all over the place, although we're noticing that while our elementary numbers have rebounded a lot, some of those families that had kids during the pandemic and maybe even had kids baptized here, that's been a slower connection that hasn't happened as naturally because of the interruption over the last couple of years. But we have a lot of kids. Last year we took a team to the Holy Land, so a pilgrimage got delayed, but we had a great experience of deepening spiritual roots in the Holy Land together. We continue to do things like our Easter sunrise service out. We've got a variety of voices that address you and speak to the scriptures and speak from the heart, whether it's Reverend Lee or Reverend Byron or Reverend Nare, and you have to put up with me as well. We've got a lot of youth, and one of the really exciting things is Lee is seeing more and more youth come back on a Sunday night. And not only that, but it's starting to happen again that they're inviting their friends. And so the number of youth that are simply showing up on a Sunday night is growing. This is a scene from Heaven's Kitchen. And like yesterday, they served 50 people, I told you that. And that's been an ongoing ministry. We've been and it's a relational ministry. And we know people by name. We talk to people and treat them with dignity, not as clients, right? These are friends. These are people that maybe are in more difficult circumstances, but we try to treat everybody with dignity, with God's love and with God's grace. We continue to be a resource to the annual conference. The Baltimore, Washington Conference often turns to our church, because we're one of the larger churches in the conference, to host things. So we had the Mark Miller concert for Love and Justice last year. And coming up in March, we will host the bishop and a special training day here at the church for hundreds of people from our conference and from the Peninsula Delaware Conference. And even though the United Methodist Church is in a lot of flux right now, you might have heard about that in the news, you might be aware of that going on. In our area, 95+% of the churches are staying within the United Methodist Church. At least. It's actually higher than that right now. I probably could have given you a slightly higher number. And so we are committed to the United Methodist Church. We are committed to being part of a big tent, welcoming, inclusive church. And we are committed to our annual conference too, as they are committed to us. We were able to re-engage with ASP last year. finally get that 40th summer of serving with our teenagers and our college students there. What a milestone, but it took 2 years of delay to get back to Appalachia Service Project. We are baptizing children and welcoming them into the community of faith. This is serving at ASP, serving at our garage sale. And we have these sacred moments in our congregation as well when we, every year we remember the lives of the saints departed. And so we have these rhythms in our congregation that are part of the way that we stay grounded and stay connected and know that we are better together. And that's one of those. There's the joy and the chaos of Vacation Bible School. We're already starting to put out feelers for this summer. We have new people stepping up to help with the garage sale, as well as long-timers. We have youth that show up, and these young teenage boys are Lee's pride and challenge, I think. And there's just so much life and energy in our youth ministry that continues to be there. So many people step forward to volunteer. Erica does an amazing job with our children's ministry in so many different capacities. We're finding a little, Severna Park is still mostly a white place, but we're starting to see a little bit more diversity, particularly in our youth group, which is a wonderful thing. We have long-time servants who show up in the kitchen whenever there's a need, whether there's a memorial service or whether there's an outreach opportunity. We have just these saints of the church that are bound together by that. And the fun and the joy of serving together with the missions garage sale. We raised about $20,000 during the missions garage sale. We had third grade Bibles again, and we were able to give in person now these Bibles instead of out in the parking lot, right? Or instead of virtually, or come by and pick up your Bible. We were able to do that in person again. We had a little fun at the garage sale there as well. Last year when we couldn't be in person in January, we still had the renewal of baptism on our front porch. If you remember that we made shells available, and you could come and get a shell, and we could be able to touch the water as well. And all of these ministries, so many of our ministries are outwardly focused, which I love about this church, and I think you ought to love that too. And to know that even though we scaled back our budget this year because we have to be cautious, and I'll say more about that in a minute, we gave missions their full asking, because that is the heartbeat of this congregation, right? That is what makes this congregation tick. And it's the relationships and that form over this time. This is a scene from our chaotic 4 o'clock Christmas Eve service. Christmas Eve, we were scurrying around for chairs like crazy, like we used to do. I've said to others that it felt like the old days, because we had over 400 people at that service. And on Christmas Eve 2022, we had about over 900 people here for all of our services, compared to just in 2021, we had under 600, just under 600. So people are starting to come back, and it was great to have to scurry around and have to violate the fire code. And did I just say that on our live stream? I can't believe I did. Take that. Can you edit that out, Rob? No, just kidding. But lots of new people stepping forward to serve, lots of families coming together. We've had great family events that are intergenerational, like some music and s'mores. A lot of fun on that stage with this impromptu nativity scenes. This is one of our school supply drives. And we have another one that's happening right now, a mid-year school supply drive. We got to go back with our VIM team and go out again. And so we had teams go down to Tennessee this fall. It was a joint ASP volunteers and mission thing. We've got new families that are coming with young kids to our church. We continue to teach the youngest to the oldest that Jesus is risen and Jesus is present among us, right? And we have an amazing tech team that has sustained us and grown as another part of our ministry here. For a while, it was lifeblood to this ministry when we couldn't be together, and now it's an extension of our ministry. We still consider our in-person ministry our primary ministry, but this is a complementary ministry that we are able to provide now as we reach out to people who can't be here because they're older or sick or away or traveling, or maybe they're not ready to step foot in this door. And we've had a lot of people who started in our virtual community before they started coming to church here. So it's an outreach for our community as well. And these connections and the fun thing, I love Ben, who offered the football that he had won at bingo, and he gave it to one of the guests. His mom may have prompted him to do that, I'm not sure. But in any event, he gave it willingly and joyfully. And I love the fact that our young families can serve together. And last year, you may recall, at the very beginning of the Ukrainian invasion, we had an outreach and a partnership with a congregation in Silver Spring, a Ukrainian congregation. And your supplies that we collected here, humanitarian supplies, medical supplies, and basic needs, went over to Silver Spring, and they were on their way to Ukraine within a week. And so you had a direct impact in that community. We have friendships and faith that's forming among our young people, from the youngest on up through our youth. Some good news on the financial front. So that was kind of a whirlwind tour of just last year, and I swear I could have given you twice as many slides. Matter of fact, this morning I was cutting slides left and right so that we could get out of here in an hour. There's just been so many signs of hope and life, and some of the things that we couldn't do a year ago, we were able to do last year. And so there are signs that we are coming back, and your generosity is one of those signs as well. Last year, coming into the last quarter, we didn't know how we were going to land. We were facing a deficit. You never know. We always expect that we're going to kind of catch up in December, but we don't know. We're on uncharted terrain still. And by your generosity through the months of November and December especially, we ended up the year with a $40,000 surplus, which we knew we were going to need coming into this year. We were going to need some cushion coming into this year. And that's why surplus is in quotes. Because that surplus was made possible. We had a surplus the year before of $1,000, right, Lynn? So we just made it the year before. This past year, $40,000 surplus. That's a good trend, isn't it? Moving in the right direction. We were really good stewards of our money. We pared back our budget last year. We didn't cut back ministry, but we were pretty good stewards of what we did. But we've had $156,000 of PPP money for 2 years that was designed to help sustain and keep staff in place. That's what that program was for, and it did that for us. It helped to sustain staff salaries, not just for the church, but also for the nursery school. We helped the nursery school get that, and the nursery school was impacted even more than we were during the beginning stages of COVID, if you recall. So those dollars go away, and we knew those dollars would go away this year, which means this year we are counting on more of us to give. We expect that's going to happen because we think more people are coming back. And we are also counting on all of us to give more, because that's a big gap, right? That's about 10%, a little over 10% of our budget last year. $150,000 that goes away. So we have a cushion carrying into the new year. We have some cash reserves. We've scaled back our budget. We've done the best we can to be good stewards of all of our dollars we have. And we've just passed a deficit budget, even with our best, we think, hopeful but realistic projections for where our income will be this year. We still think this is going to be a transition year. But we're comfortable with that because we know that we are trending in the right direction, and we have a little bit of a cushion to absorb that this year. But we can't do that for long, right? We think hopefully just this year. Your generosity has been amazing, and we want to thank you for that. We made a lot of transitions last year. So last year, if you recall, we hired our new part-time music director, Laura Young, who's just been with us for less than half a year. But what an impact she's had already, especially with our children and expanding the choir and all the connections that she's made. And who knew that we were getting a package deal that Ty came with Laura, you know? Ty, this amazing cellist and guitar player and worship leader, and that's like, we're not even paying him to do that stuff, you know? He just does it because he loves Jesus, which is awesome. And what a gift that's been to our congregation. And we were able to take Meg's position and bring her. We thought we were going to have her for a year as like a gap year to help us get through this transition time. But we were able to entice her to stay because we cobbled together part of our communications portfolio and her worship leadership role. Now she's full-time with us as of December. Isn't that good? Aren't you glad we get Meg along? So she's doing our social media and our website and our digital communications and all of those things in addition to what she does on a Sunday morning here. And so we've had some major staff transitions. She now is full-time with us. We've also had some other things. Nicola is scaling back. You might be seeing her a little less these days. If you've been paying attention, that's been happening all fall. And that will happen through the year. Not because we don't like Nicola. We love Nicola. But she's also involved now with a good friend helping this nonprofit get off the ground. And so she needs some time and some space to do that. And it's an empowerment program for women and financial literacy. And it's a great thing. And we said, yes, you should do that. Now's the time to do that. And so to do that, she's had to pull back a little bit. And so now you've been seeing Sean like once a month, right? Instead of Nicola, which is not a bad substitute, is it? You know, Sean brings incredible gifts, but that's now part of our rhythm. And Joanne has taken over the accompaniment of the choir. So you may have seen Joanne Eckhart now who comes to choir rehearsals and plays for the choir. And so Nicola can scale back just a little. We're not letting her go anywhere, don't worry. But that gives her the freedom to care for her family the way she needs to, but also this nonprofit that she's, really exciting opportunity that she's part of. I got some sad news. Oh, yeah, I didn't have to set you up for that. Lee has to retire in 2023. She's hit a magical age. I'll let you tell her. She will tell you what that number is. She just hit it this month. So that means, according to the United Methodist Church, as a full-time deacon in full connection, she has to retire. We have mandatory retirement age. It's over 70 and less than 73. That's all I'll tell you. So she hit that magic number, and we knew that was coming one day. But that is sad news. But the great news is that we're not letting her leave. Yeah, isn't that even better news? So like Byron, she is going to stay on as a retired pastor in our staff, and she's going to continue to work with our youth. But you'll see a shift in her role mid-year. And so we're just preparing you for, even though her birthday happened in January, her official retirement with the annual conference doesn't happen until the end of June. And so mid-year, you'll see that shift happening. And she's still going to be around on Sunday morning. But she may be doing less of some of the other things that she's been doing. She's not going away. She doesn't want to go away. We don't want her to go anywhere. We're not letting her leave. But that's a big transition that's happening too. As we think about this year, the two phrases that come to mind, which is why I chose the two scriptures I did, are pressing on and come and see. Pressing on and come and see. We were so excited, and he was here at the 8 o'clock service. Chris Nunn, one of our youth, is a cross-country runner at Severna Park High School. They just won the state championship, and he was named the Gazette Runner of the Year. Isn't that cool? So he was here. I asked him to take a couple laps around our which he refused to do. I don't know why he didn't do that. But he was here. He's here almost every Sunday with his family. He's right front row, 8 o'clock service. So what a great honor. And not only that, he had great teammates, including Alex Lacoris, who I see as his proud dad in the back there. Alex was first team, right? Which is awesome, right? Alex had a lot of success during this cross-country season too. And these are guys, and the whole cross-country team, they know what it's like to press on. Like if you're a distance runner, you just have to press on when it's tough. You have to press on when it's hard, when you're tired, when you don't think you've got anything left in the tank, right? You just keep pressing on. And that's the image that Paul uses in the letter to the Philippians. He says, in this 3rd chapter, he says, not that I've already obtained this. I'm not there yet. We're not quite to the goal yet. Or have already reached the goal, but I press on to lay hold of that for which Christ has laid hold for me. This God who has fully claimed us, Paul says, I am pressing on to fully lay claim and hold of God too. And this God who chases us down, this God who loves us recklessly, right? This reckless love of God, it is a call to give our all back to God. It's a call that we press on and give our very, very best back to God. And so that, I hope, will be a theme of this year, that we don't think that we've arrived yet. We're still not out of the woods. We've got some growing and some rebuilding and some reimagining to do here as a congregation. We're pressing on yet because Christ has laid hold of us. And the second thing I think we have to think of ourselves, I've been telling our staff this over the last couple of years, is that we have to think of ourselves not as a church that's just an established congregation and we can just open our doors and everyone's going to come. That may have been true, wasn't true 5 years ago. It may have been true 15, 20 years ago. Churches could do that, but we can't do that. anymore. We have to think of ourselves as both. I've been telling our staff, we are an established church with lots of great history and lots of great traditions and things in place, but we have to think of ourselves at the same time as a new church start, always reinventing ourselves and always reaching out to new people, more intentionally than we've ever done before. Because we need everybody in this together. And we may not see each other as often, but we need to strengthen who we are as a congregation. Last week, Reverend Byron preached out of Matthew's Call of the Disciples, and so I went to the Call of the Disciples stories in John today. And in John's Gospel, in the first chapter, the method of calling disciples is come and see. Come and see for yourself. When John the Baptist's disciples see Jesus walking by and they want to know if Jesus is the real deal, what's he say to them? He doesn't try to convince them of anything. He just says, come and see. Where are you staying? He says, come and see. Check it out for yourself. And that invitational model of ministry and that experiential model of ministry, come and see and experience and taste God's goodness for yourself. That's who we need to be and want to be as a congregation. When Philip, who found Jesus, it was Andrew who found Jesus, and then he invites Simon, his brother, Simon Peter, and then Philip finds Jesus, and he goes back to his friend Nathanael, and he says, Nathanael, look, we found the one. And Nathanael says, a little skeptically, can anything good come out of Nazareth? And Philip doesn't try to argue with him. We argue enough with each other, don't we? We need to love each other to faith. We need to invite each other to faith. We need to broaden the tent by invitation and simply saying to our friends, our family, to the friends we haven't seen and the friends we will yet to see here, come and see for yourself. And everything we are about as a congregation needs to radiate that and express that. Come and see. Come and see with us. Friends, that's the state of the church as I see it right now. We are in an exciting place. We're in a place where we still need to press on, and we need to invite and welcome in. And we need to keep doing a lot of the things we've been doing here for a long time. And it's so good that we're getting to do them again. And so good that there are people coming back to participate and be part of that, and that all of you are part of that as well. Thanks be to God. Amen.